Okay, we're on, folks. Good evening. Welcome to the March 19th, 2019 Select Board Agenda. I'm John Martin, Francine Tishman, and Jim Labrie to my left, Matt Rowland, and Rini Groden to my right. We're being recorded and also broadcast live. If everybody can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start right with the appointments. First one is Jonathan J. to the Bylaw Review Committee. Jonathan, are you here?
No, he's not.
He's not here?
No.
Okay.
But I'd like to speak a little bit on his behalf because
Sure.
he did attend prior to this appointment. He did attend as a guest of a bylaw committee meeting. And we really, he just jumped in running. He didn't miss a beat. I'm especially pleased because he offers a much-needed expertise because he has a legal background and his experience is in revising laws and other organizational governing documents.
Okay.
So he's an excellent addition, and I'm very grateful. So we're full now.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. So can we have a motion to accept Jonathan J. to the Bylaw Review Committee with a term to expire June 20th, 2021?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Brittany Taylor. Hi, how are you? Come on up. Appointment to the Conservation Commission, term to expire June 30th, 2020. Since you're here, we're going to ask you why you'd like to be on the Conservation Commission.
I'm a lifelong resident of Southampton. I'm also an avid outdoors person, so I have greatly enjoyed over the years what Southampton has to offer in terms of its woodlands, its trails, its already preserved areas. I also have a background in marine science and biology, so that is also an interest. I would really like the opportunity to learn more about what goes into conserving the land, policy, the science behind it. So I think it would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, sounds like you got a great background. Anybody have any questions for Brittany?
No, she was voted in favor by the Conservation Commission last night's meeting.
Good.
Yeah, I read the letter.
Okay, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Brittany Taylor for the Conservation Commission, term to
Second.
expire 2020, June 2020.
You have a second?
I'll second.
We got Matt and Francine, so Ed, put down Francine. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Brittany.
Okay, we have no hearings, so we have reports. Ed told me we had to go slow because he's actually taking the minutes too, since Kathy's not here, so. So you want to start with yours, Ed? Get that out of the way?
Sure, cross me up. Taking notes, and he's giving his report.
Exactly. All right. Just to let you know, the letter of interest on behalf of the Board of Selectmen has been sent to the City of Westfield to join in on a feasibility study for the regionalization of dispatch services along with several other towns. This would be for a grant for a feasibility study. The feasibility study would not commit the town to joining, but would identify the important information and the pros and cons of having a regionalized dispatch service. East Street Bridge update, VHB's geotechnical engineers, subcontractor has completed the on-site soil borings, which are required for the bridge design. Let's see. Also a question, would the Select Board like to invite the Boston Post Kane awardee to their meeting of April 2nd to give them the award?
Yeah, I think it'd be great
Good
if
idea.
the person could come.
Okay. We will send out an invitation and see if they're available.
Great.
As you are aware, we have been contacted by Mr. Palmer on behalf of a scout troop who would like to clean up the trash, which is laden in the woods behind the Norris School. Principal Pluta has given permission for them to go onto the property. They have also asked if they would be allowed to dispose of the trash they collect at the transfer station without being charged. Randall Kemp, Highway Superintendent, is on board with this and says that this has been done before with previous cleanup projects. He would even be willing to give a hand and have the town loader on site to put the trash in one of the dump trucks to take it right to the transfer station if the project were done on a weekend. Would the selectmen like to give permission for this to happen and the waiver of the trash disposal fees?
Does anybody have an issue with that?
No?
Okay.
Thank you. Let's see, some old business, town hall generator. The generator will need to have another natural gas line run to it from the meter before the emergency generator is started and run for its 2-hour initial test. Gun Road extension, traffic control request. The police department is aware that as soon as the weather warms up that the radar sign should be placed out there on Gun Road extension again and record in both directions. So we have a recording of the actual trips and the speeds while school is in session. Traffic speed study on Route 10. Again, Mass DOT has done the preliminary work on this, and they're waiting for the warmer weather to complete the study. The open space and recreation plan, I'm awaiting the contract from PVPC for this grant work. The proposed schedule will begin in the May-June timeframe and be completed in December of 2019 with the submittal of the final draft of the plans and maps. An OSRP committee should be appointed, and we'll need input from the planning, the parks department, the highway, the water, conservation, council on aging, school department, police, and fire along the way. The DOER Green Communities Grant, and I'm awaiting an updated report from the Energy Services Company to include some of the doors at Norris School and the lighting and insulation here at Town Hall. The dog complaint on White Loaf, I have notified the police department, animal control, and the complainant as how we plan to move forward with this issue concerning the roaming dogs. So they're all aware and on board. I have placed the past 4 fiscal years of history for our extended illness benefit costs in your packets. So you have that information. And let's see, I have received several recommendations for consultants, architects to perform the feasibility envelope study evaluation of the police station, which is the old town hall on East Street. Although none of them is very local, I will contact them and see if any of the recommended companies are interested in the work and get estimates on what it might cost. And then Board of Selectmen meetings for April are the 2nd, the 16th, and the 30th.
Any questions for Ed on his report?
I have 2 things. The first is the open space and recreation plan. I believe the grant was for 10,000 something, and the estimate was for closer to 14,000. I'm just wondering about the difference. And also, I thought it expired at the end of June, and is that a problem that it would be on track to be finished by the end of the year? Is that okay?
I think if we're working on it, we'll be fine. And on the other, I had asked that question, and they still feel that the work can be done, but within PVPC and with our input for the 10-5.
Okay. And the second thing was, just, John, reminding you about the April 30th date. We were going to try to, maybe we can back into that, but
right.
depending on the warrants and articles and so forth. But anyway, just a reminder that there is an event in town for open space, what we talk about with the other reports, but we're going to try to change that.
Okay. So, want to save it for that?
Sure.
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
On the dog complaint, have the dog owners been notified or just the complainants?
Just the complainants, because I did that by telephone. I'm going to send a registered and regular letter to the
Owners?
owners, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. See, Mr. J came in. How are you?
I'm fine, thank
Would you like to come up? We already voted you into the bylaw review committee. Francine did such a great job of highlighting your experience.
So it's too late for me to decline.
Well, it's too late. We voted you in. There's no
Thank you.
going back.
Right.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to?
But thank you. I look forward to working with Francine, the town clerk, and others on the committee, and hope I can make a contribution to the town in that way.
Oh, we appreciate you volunteering your time.
All right, thanks for your faith
Come forward.
in my being an unknown. Thank you.
We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, town administrator report. Rini, would you like to start?
I mean,
Selectman report, yeah.
New town administrator.
Yeah.
Gotta get new glasses.
there has not been another meeting of the Community Preservation Committee or the Council of Aging. They're just monthly, so there's no updates for them. There is a document here, though, from Janet about the Council of Aging. And as far as open space, I'll let you report on that one. And Conservation Commission, I mean, Marla's here, a lot of long meeting last night, went through a lot of different things. The only issue is, continuing the work on Glendale, getting all that set between signs. There was a vote last night for the naming of it, which is Clearwater Woodlands. Woodland. Clearwater Woodland. And so now signs can be made and a lot of other steps have to happen. There is an issue that the state requires that any land that was purchased with community preservation needs to have a CR, conservation restriction, and so that needs to happen, and Marla's working with Ed on that. So anyway, there's a lot of business, but is there anything else that I should mention? Volunteers. Yes, I'm going to be putting together a team, 4 teams of volunteers actually, that can help with trail maintenance, and so more to come on that. If there are any volunteers, though, please respond to the website address for the Conservation Commission in the interim. I think that's it.
Capital Committee has not met since our last meeting. I'm sure we'll be having things come up relatively soon. PQB did meet. It was a very quick meeting. I was unable to attend, but we'll be discussing those. They're just PCFs towards the tail end of this meeting. And Board of Health was scheduled to meet tonight, but that meeting canceled. So that's it.
Okay. Francine?
Okay. The Master Plan Committee, Implementation Committee met on March 11th. I know I give the same thing, but we continue to discuss the elements of public service and facilities section of the master plan, and that includes public water, wastewater, telecommunications, buildings, transportation, and town hall services. So it's just about everything. While we're attempting to document the work that has been accomplished since the plan was finalized in 2015, we're also simultaneously exploring alternatives, one of which is on telecommunications, municipal fiber optics, and that will be further explored in a joint meeting between the Select Board and the Master Plan Implementation Committee on April 16th. That's it. Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, well, on the planning board met 2 Wednesdays ago. It was a quiet meeting, but I just wanted to bring this up. They had the Levesque and Associates came in to talk about a possibility of what they would like to do with the property, which is just south of JP Restaurant, and it's on Route 10. And they were talking about putting up 2 buildings, moving Dunkin' Donuts there, and maybe even a 3rd building on the property for a bank. This land is zoned residential, and it's in the historical district, so that was brought up, but they are considering a zoning change. So it was just an open discussion to give us an idea of what they were thinking about. The first step, the select board will be notified, so it'll be something that we have to act on. So I'm just giving you a heads up that we may be seeing something. I'm not even sure if they're going to continue, but that possibility is there. The assessors meeting was this evening. I was unable to attend. And the last thing I have here is, I believe 3 residents from Southampton were awarded scholarships from the St. Patrick's Day Committee. And they asked our board for representation in the parade on Sunday. So I was honored. I was the one chosen to represent Southampton, and I marched, and it was very, very interesting. It was a great time. I marched in with Easthampton, their city council, police and fire, and mayor, and they were really welcoming, and it was a great, great day. Had a lot of fun. Even though it was cold, the spirits were a lot there. There were a lot of spirits there.
That's for sure.
I just, one interesting, I was towards the end of the parade, and one gentleman yells out, "Southampton! I've been there, I like your cow. Happy St. Patrick's Day." It was really good. Everybody, it was a really good day, and I had a good time. So just wanted to share
That was after the spirits, right?
That was after the spirits. So, it was super.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay, Open Space Review Committee, invitations were sent out to landowners with 10-plus acres for 2 dinner meetings, was it, Rini? Yeah, we're having? For both dinner meetings, the RSVPs were sent out for the landowners?
Yeah, yep, they just,
Okay.
I think were sent out today, actually.
Yeah, so if you own 10-plus acres, you'll probably be getting an invitation. If you can RSVP, we'd love to see you there. And one of the meetings is on April 30th, where we have a select board meeting set up. So we would like to move that because Rini and I are both on the Open Space Review Committee, and plus we'd like you folks to be at the presentation too. So would you folks mind looking at the calendars and seeing if we can move it from the 30th? I'm thinking maybe moving it to a Wednesday so we don't get off cycle. That make sense?
Like
Like
you
Wednesday
say
the
To the
24th?
first, the first,
Oh, the first.
it's a Wednesday,
When's the town meeting?
The 7th.
7th.
7th. I don't have a problem.
The second also,
Yeah, there is a CPC meeting that night.
which one, the first?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, planning board that night as well.
How about the second?
Second's
I
good
would
for me.
prefer the second,
The
but
second works.
Yep,
Okay,
second's
let's do
better.
the second, then we'll change that.
Okay.
That's May 2nd, okay?
So the event on the 30th is, it's an invitation, and it's at the church, and it's a dinner, but it's also very educational programs about land and trust and conservation, and Kestrel is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of really good information for those people that might be interested in looking at what their options are in terms of their own land. So it's the 10th, the 30th, and then there's a hike in May.
There's going to be a lot of good speakers. Okay, Finance Committee last night started looking at department budgets, and what they asked for, they got budgets from the departments of what they would like to see in fiscal year '20, but the Finance Committee went back and asked them to also do a level funded budget, and by looking at the level funded budget, they wanted them to list what would happen if they got level funded this year versus what they were looking for. So the Finance Committee just wants to see what they're asking for and whether they want to support that going forward rather than just say we're not giving extra money out. So they want to look at the needs of each department individually rather than just say the same thing for all departments, because as we know, some departments have needs that we have to prioritize. I was at Hampshire Regional High School Contract Negotiating Committee this afternoon, and that's going well. Can't really say much else about that. And any questions on any of that? Okay. So let's go on. Old business. Fiscal year 19 budget and expenditures review.
I think it looked pretty good.
I gotta pull mine up, so I have to hold a second.
No, I don't have any questions. I guess I see, the remaining, the money, I don't know that it's encumbered or not, but the remaining balance from now until June 30th. And I don't know how many of those are just expenses that occur much later in the year, or if there's any way of kind of looking back at some of the balances and seeing if there's any way that we could realize some savings.
I am at a standstill because I can't find it. Vicky, did it come from you? The budget?
Here,
I'm having
you can
trouble
look at
finding
mine.
Joyce? Yeah. Usually it pops right up. Let's see. So, excuse me, Francine, can you throw the question again?
Pardon?
Can you give me the question again? I was looking
Oh,
at this.
I was asking, looking at the amount of anticipated, well, the balance left in the expense account
Mhm.
of 9 million, almost $10 million, whether or not, with salaries, wages, benefits, and, obligated payments, those aside, is there any way to realize any additional savings this year? I know that would flow into free cash, but, just looking at how can we, if it is possible to save money this year, it would be great.
Vicky, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, can you tell any large line items, for instance, that we have accrued but don't show up as being spent, and we're gonna spend it?
Trying to get a projection. For
Yeah.
free cash.
That's almost virtually impossible,
Yeah, that's,
because it's basically based on what's in your undesignated fund balance, and then you're gonna subtract your receivables and add your deferred revenues and any minuses from other accounts. But if you don't have all the tax bills sent out, then you don't have the money coming in. And I mean, there are probably some savings in here, but wages are probably gonna be on point or over. Some people in their departments have worked over their hours, not by a lot, but some.
Okay.
The expense lines would be the only one, but there's not anything in here that's huge that you probably would save, tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, but I'm just looking, even if I just look at the general fund, I know I was looking at the total that included all the special accounts, but if I
Well,
look.
the special accounts doesn't
We
kind of work,
can't
yes.
touch, I understand that. But there's a balance of $6,100,000 and some thousand dollars and change. And just wondering, like I said, with the exclusion of obligations, salaries and things like that, can we anticipate that we could ask people to trim it a little bit if they could?
You can ask them. I mean,
Well,
You know,
it
I
would have to
don't-
come from Ed, and.
I don't foresee that there's gonna, people are pretty much strapped as it is. So, they don't buy that paper bulk, you're gonna save $200 maybe, those kinds of things, but.
Okay,
But it's possible, but I don't think there's gonna be a ton.
okay. But my concern is just not when we get to the end of the year, that if people have a balance, they just go ahead and spend it, just to spend it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
As
are we able
opposed to hanging on to it, carrying it over into the next year. Because I've seen that happen.
Well, they can't carry balances from this year, they can't carry it,
No,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah.
goes into free cash, but it looked a little bit like discretionary spending from what I could see,
At the end of
that
last
I
fiscal
thought
year.
you could, that,
it's the use it or
There could
lose
have
it,
been
what you're trying to say.
that's what I'm saying.
well, there are points in some of those departments' budgets where they save their money because they don't know what possibly could come up that they would need to spend for specific items.
Okay,
And so then at the end, they're like, okay, well, I didn't have to spend the money on like police uniforms because not everyone put their uniforms in. So they're gonna buy things that they put off because they know they'll have that money towards the end. But I don't really see people just nilly-willy spending whatever they have left at the end of the year.
We
Yeah,
don't have a
yeah.
lot, but there was one item that stuck out for me that was a substantial amount of money. And,
And that was,
well, I don't want to mention it right now. But it was something that occurred towards the end of the year. And I was thinking, gee, if we had all that money, wouldn't we want to use it for something like something else? Or would we want to, roll it into free cash for the next year?
I'm concerned about that too. I mean, I think that if you've saved money over the course of the year to protect for the what-if scenario, and the what-if scenario never comes, that,
Then you're putting other things off that you need, but you put it off because you have certain obligations that you potentially have to spend.
I do understand that argument too, but I think as we kind of come to the close, then maybe perhaps those things that you've put off should maybe be reprioritized somehow. I mean, I realize that there's a lot of work involved with that, and then you're balancing that across town departments, but I don't know of the easy answer for that. But I do kind of echo the same overall concern, which is the use it or lose it scenario.
Yeah, that's the old
the
so-called
scenario,
state
Right.
mentality. But in defense of some of the departments, I guess, police department, and if they don't know if they have enough money to cover their wage budget, they may be holding off on doing something, and then
And I
they
see that side too, yeah.
yeah, and then they say, okay, I need this, I need the uniform, so now I've got the money, I'm gonna spend it. So it's kind of like if we approve the budget up front, unless we see some spending that's entirely inappropriate, I think they should manage their budget themselves.
Okay, I'm not saying that.
No, I'm not saying you are, but
And
yeah.
and the flip side of that is you've already got some departments that have overspent or spent just about all of their accounts that have had building maintenance issues or some other issues that are out there that they're gonna have to rob Peter to pay Paul and actually transfer, at the end of the year. I mean, later in this meeting tonight, we're at the point now, we've probably spent all of our snow and ice money, so we're gonna have to declare a snow and ice deficit, so we're gonna have to be, at the end of the year, looking to transfer monies from other departments into covering that, because if we don't cover that, then it's gonna start right on our tax recap, and we're gonna have to put it back to the taxpayers, which we don't wanna do, we wanna pay it off, so.
Now, Vicki, if you see something come out of a budget that is just kind of out of whack with what that department would normally use, would you?
We always ask that question, like, why do you need this? What is it for? Those types of questions. And I can't, legally, I can't pull it back,
Right,
but I can pull it back and ask the question and wait to pay it till the next time.
yeah, or send
Because
it,
no one can really because it's a legal expense.
Yeah.
But it's not, I guess it depends on what that is, but if you're buying $1,000 desk, well, then I'm gonna be like, wait a minute, this is just not, you can't spend the money on this,
Right.
this is kind of crazy.
and that's something I hope you alert Ed about, he could
Well,
deal
also,
with it.
we voted to actually make sure that he is involved in the spending of
Right. Yeah,
to certain departments.
Do my job, so.
Yeah, so that he's aware of those kinds of things.
yeah, in theory, but, somebody could buy something and he's not gonna know it until you get the bill, like you said.
Well, and it's already processed.
Well,
And
that's
once
the
you-
other thing, yes.
The only thing you could do is return it if it's possible, but,
Yeah, I mean, that's why we ask those questions up front, because that's what I'm mandated by the state to do. That's part of my job. That's what the accountants do, so that's what we do in our office, so. We try to hold back that kind of stuff as much as we can.
Well, and our job is to make sure that the department heads manage their budget, and their boss is basically Ed, so that's why we had asked that he have oversight and at least it go by his desk, even if it's after the fact.
in all, if looking at the reports every couple of weeks, we're doing a good job of keeping it within the budget, which is nice. We've got to be real careful when we reallocate the budget for next year to make sure any one-time costs this past year don't get back into the budget next year, because that's where the extra money comes in. And as we're looking at the budgets on the Finance Committee, we see several of those already, so you got to make a note of saying, okay, next year I need to pull those back, because that may be an extra $10,000 this year they need, but they don't need it next year. So, any other questions? Thanks, Vicki. Actually, we have Vicki and Jennifer coming up a little later. Okay. Hampshire Regional Budget and Expenditure, another placeholder. East Street Bridge, Ed, is there any update?
No, I covered it in my town administrator's report.
Okay. Now we have Vicki Morrow, Town Accountant, and Jennifer Day.
First is the auditor and auditor's management letter, which I think is her,
Now, this is their
Revenues,
Yeah.
revenues.
their review for the fiscal year 19 revenues. We asked to bring them both together so we could talk about it because
oh, okay.
we've got the expenditures up to date, and the revenues were a little behind, but from what I understand, they're posted through January?
They're
January?
posted to the end of January, yes.
Okay, so we're just waiting for February, which normally a few weeks late is normal.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how is it going with the revenue coming in? I know we're getting a lot of excise
There's
taxes
a lot of
coming in?
excise coming in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Piles.
Yeah, I've got bills at home.
Yeah.
Do you think that's gonna be up this year, the revenue for excise? Have you seen much difference? Because we've seen it fluctuate over the years.
You know, I don't really have that answer. I
Yeah.
can check for you.
It's
Okay.
been growing.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of one of those revenue streams that you conservatively budget. But we have, you know, collected, you know, almost $200,000 more than we budgeted last year. So this year, the budget has that potential in there. But the commitments are more, so your revenue stream's gonna obviously be more. I mean, the receivables are kind of steady and what you are still owed at the end of the year. But it's been increasing, you know, for the past, whatever, 6.5 years I've been here, so.
A lot of people buying new cars. That helps it. How about taxes, past taxes that haven't been collected before? Do we have much outstanding on those issues?
It's been a huge increase
Yeah.
in back taxes, right?
Collections.
Collection.
Collections, yeah.
Yeah, and back tax collections, yeah, so I didn't bring a report or calculate a report as to what's outstanding right now.
Right.
I do have 3 new payment plans started with outstanding taxpayers that are all, hopefully, if they stick to this plan, they'll pay off their back taxes within 3 years and keep current. If they don't, then we'll go to foreclose.
Okay.
Um,
Do we have a
and
lot of
then-
those in that situation, number-wise?
We don't really have a lot of back tax, no.
No.
It's really not bad, and there's not a lot of taxpayers on the list. Gosh, I wanna say,
So,
number-wise.
so for instance, for tax foreclosures, there's about $32,000
Okay.
that has been owed for the past couple of years. Now, tax liens, 2 years ago was like 200 and some odd $1,000. Now it's 110.
Yeah, well, we
So we
cleared
A lot
up.
of
definitely
those.
collected a lot,
We collected all that.
you know, a year when Donna was here, and then you collected a lot last year, so it's definitely dwindling, and I don't remember, we added too many, I think we maybe added one.
We only added one and they paid it off.
One last, yes.
Yeah, so,
So we haven't added, you know, for a while, I was kind of concerned, because it was 130, then it got to be 160, then it was 190, then it was 200. And so now it's, you know, we've collected a few of those, people have paid that off and stayed in their homes, and so now it's about $110,000, so.
And as you know from my last report, that one that I reported on at the last meeting that Maureen had asked about, that was a substantial payoff to the town.
Yeah. It's nice to stay on top of those things because
Yeah.
in that case, the value of the back taxes and the interest was almost the value of the property, which
Right.
was a really
Yeah.
bad situation for both.
That sat there for a while.
Yeah.
And it's good for actually the landowners, because you let it go too long, they get in such a deep hole at the interest rate. What's the interest rate now? Is it like 14%?
16% on the, it's 16% once
16?
it's leaned, yeah.
And you can't dig yourself out of that after a while. So, that's great. Okay, so that's good. Anything else? You're looking for a new hire, right?
There's the PCF tonight, I believe.
Okay, so
So-
you have a temp right now?
I do.
Okay,
So she works, it depends she's retired, so she can only work so many hours.
Yep.
Plus my budget doesn't call for her to work full-time hours because we had to pay out for vacation. So she's been working, I don't know, anywhere from 16 to, I think 1 week she did work like 30.
really.
But, yeah, so,
But once you get a permanent person, you can train the person and they're off and running?
yes,
A temp is tough to train,
yeah, it's been rough.
yeah.
So, but, it's been nice to have the third person, to have an extra body.
Yep.
But yeah, to train someone and then they're gone, it's kind of,
It's tough.
yeah.
Oh, good, we'll have to get to the PCF and get that taken care of for you.
So
Anything?
just so that we can all understand the process that we go through to receive revenues,
Thank you.
That would be
That
good.
was going to be my question, if you'd go over with the Board of
Yes.
Selectmen from start to finish.
well, Jen, they collect all the money and all the, they have their point where they have to post it in their point system. And then they create a turnover, and then Jen has the turnover, and she enters all that into software system. Once she enters that, which takes her a good couple of hours, could be a whole day sometimes to do a packet.
Yeah, it depends. So I could probably enter a month in a couple of days if that's what I do from, the
Yeah.
whole time, but that just doesn't ever happen. So,
So once she's done posting, I print out the proof, and I have to check every single account, every single dollar amount to the turnover that people bring upstairs. So what happens with the money is someone brings the money to the treasurer's office, they sign off and say, yes, you gave me $1,000. I get a copy, they're supposed to bring one upstairs, and she gets a copy, or the original, so that she has something to enter it into the system. I print that report, and then I have to verify by the copy they bring upstairs to what she actually entered. So I check the account number, I check the turnover number, I check the amount to make sure that all matches, which takes me, depending on how big the packet is, 2, 3, 4 hours every time I do it. Because it's a lot of, making sure, because if it's not right, or if I don't have a copy, then I have to get the copy to make sure that it's correct. And if I go through it quickly, because everyone wants stuff posted, then I make this, you check and you think, oh, it should be 18 and it's really 19. So there's a little bit of reclassing there at that point in time. But it takes a good couple hours to post it. So it's not something like you just can quickly, you have to set aside that couple of hours to check it all to make sure that it's all correct.
So when you say turnover, are you talking about the actual check she's turning over to you?
No, so we have, I didn't bring it with me, but there's a piece of paper
Yep.
that's a deposit receipt to the treasurer.
Okay.
So they put what they,
So every check they list?
not necessarily, it depends. But every turnover should have a number, the account number, and it has to be segregated between cash and check. Because when I go to do the bank reconciliations, I have to check the turnover cash to what the cash was actually deposited on the deposit slips that go to the bank. So, it should say cash and check on them. They bring the money to her office, someone puts it in, the second signature verifies that that's what they collected. And then people bring that turnover sheet, it's called the turnover, upstairs, that just lists what money they gave to her.
Okay.
So like the transfer station brings in money on Mondays and, Saturdays. Well, when they go Saturday, they bring it Monday or Tuesday. It has tipping, it has bags, it has permits, and all those get listed separately.
Okay, so
So-
it's a double check of the funds coming in.
Yeah, because how do you know someone doesn't actually, that's,
I don't disagree.
yeah, I'm just saying
I'm just
that's kinda how it
clarifying.
goes.
Yeah, okay,
And then you have to check the cash when she does the bank rec
right.
against all those turnovers. I mean, so you have packets that have all the turnovers, you have stacks and stacks of them. So like the billing department's super busy in the spring, Art turns in checks every day.
So this is cyclical. You may not do this every week, but when you do it, you could have a big pile when excise is due and, okay.
I mean, because
Yeah.
the departments are turning stuff in,
Right.
I mean, really, I would like to get to the point where I do post revenue on a more regular, maybe like weekly basis,
Right.
but that's coming.
On average, how many packets a month, would you say?
Depends.
Yeah.
If she
I
just,
usually do, well, I always do a separate packet for interest, like a separate packet for payroll, so those two. But then I usually will combine all revenue into 2 or 3 other large packets. So it's about 5. I mean, I could break it up more or so, but,
I guess you still have the same amount of turnovers, whether you do 2 big packets or 5 little packets.
Yeah,
You still have the same
yeah.
amount that's coming in.
In terms of internal controls, this is not anything that the auditors ever look at. They
Yeah,
look,
they do.
Oh, yeah,
They do.
absolutely.
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
and they can't recommend something that's a little more efficient. My only concern is
No, because this is how they told us to do it.
to do it,
Yes.
okay. But my only concern is if I look at the expenses on the general fund, It was 11,000,002 so far. And I look at the revenue coming into the general fund that's been posted is 6.3. So how do we know we have that money in the bank to continue to pay the bills? I mean, that's my concern. Where,
Keep track of that.
okay? That's my only concern. I know it's there, it may not have been posted, but if
Right.
I don't see it in black and white, as a person who's just reading reports, I'm a little, I guess, a little,
She wants to know,
yes. I don't want to
can
use,
you write a check with no money in the bank?
no.
And why not?
but-
Because
but,
you see the balance.
But what I'm saying is, from the appearance of this, it would look as though, I know there are other funds that are in reserve, so there's always some cash on hand. It may not, that you can perhaps move around. But I guess that's always where my concern is.
So although it's not being posted instantly, I mean, the revenue is still going to the bank right away.
So the
So-
money's there.
Yeah, the money's
We just don't see
there.
it.
It's still
Report's
going to the
flagged.
bank. It's not, yeah, we don't hold the money until we post, you know, so.
Okay, I know,
So
but
we-
somewhere you
yeah,
know
so the
you have
money is
$11
going to
million
the bank. It is
to
in the
cover
bank.
these things.
Because you
And
go
all
twice
the-
a week.
I go, yeah, twice a week.
Okay.
So,
All right,
It's
I
the
mean,
paperwork catching up with the deposits.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
I just look at these two numbers and I
I
see
know,
this
I know, it's
discrepancy.
confusing.
And, you know, I would feel that way as if this was my own money. You have to make it balance somehow. Okay. So if the auditors are okay, then I won't ask anymore.
Actually, if anything, when the auditors take a look at these processes, they end up slowing it down because they put more rules or ask for more rules and regulations on it.
So I think going forward, to alleviate any confusion at this point, so when Joyce will send out the expense and revenue reports, she'll tell you what date the revenues are posted through in that email. Because it gets very confusing if we change the date on the top of this report to what the revenues are, because we already sent out a report for the end of February. And if you do it again, you're not gonna catch anything that I might have done a journal entry for or corrected or backdated to that point. So it'll still say the same date as the expenses, but we'll write in the email revenues posted through February 15th or whatever.
Okay.
So you're saying
Yeah,
this,
because then we can see the
this March
percentages.
14th report, the revenues here for at least our major source, which is the taxes and excise tax and real estate tax, is through the end of January.
No,
Correct.
That's what you said.
Posted through the end of January.
but not on the 14th because I didn't do it until Monday.
Oh,
I didn't
so
do the
it's
last
not even
packet
here.
until Monday.
That's the
Okay,
end
so
of
this is
December
even
then?
older.
Updated
Okay,
packet.
so this is then what, the end of
Because
December?
I was at school last week, and so I didn't get to post
Okay.
them until Monday when I came
Okay.
back.
Okay, so that's
One of the
confusing
packets, one I did
to
and one
us.
I didn't.
Okay, I got it, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's confusing to us because when we're trying to compare the percentages,
We don't know which
we don't know
percentage
the
to
numbers
use.
are there.
Percentages of what?
Revenue coming in
Balances.
versus
Time
what we
elapsed.
budgeted.
But it's kind of hard to do that with all of these different accounts because they're definitely cyclical.
Right.
They're definitely not going to be coming in at, like, you think half the year's over, we should have half of it.
Right.
It's not because we might have only sent one tax bill out.
Right.
So
But at
it's
least
not
we'd have
gonna-
an accurate,
I mean, you got to know how each
View.
one of these works in order to kind of figure out, well, they all shouldn't be at 50% or whatever.
right,
And the big,
percentage I
like
think it is.
expenses.
one of the
yeah.
biggest examples of that is excise tax.
Yeah, yeah, but again,
Happens once a year.
if the
Yep.
date on there is not accurate to when the paperwork is for, it's just more confusing. Agree? So if you let us know when it's for, I think we can
I can live with that,
extrapolate from there.
okay.
So, any more questions on the 19 revenues? Okay. The auditor's management letter, are they involved with this at all, Ed?
Yeah.
Vicky or Jen?
Vicky is, yes.
Vicky is, okay. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Well, looks like she's back up in a minute.
Okay, Vicky, auditor's management letter and draft responses.
So I'm assuming you got copies of the audit. They usually send them out too.
We
Or
did.
if not, Ed should have probably forwarded those.
We did.
Yep, and we got the draft letter of response, too.
They have, yeah, the draft management letter, the draft financial report, and the draft responses.
Sure is drafty.
So with the first issue, it has been an on and off issue with the town, which state procurement laws. So I think we definitely need to explain to the department heads what the new limits are and what constitutes quote and what constitutes going out to bid. Because I would say maybe every other year or every third year, this has been on our report before, with certain contracts that we have had that we didn't go out to bid, or we didn't have all the proper documentation. So I think what I think we need to do is put together some procedures for the department heads so they know when to come to Ed and say, hey, I need to put this out to bid. Because that's where we kind of get stuck.
I mean, the easiest way to do that is just draw the line at $10,000, in my opinion.
Yeah, the example they put in here, you would think the town or the department head would have gone back and discussed it with you.
Well, this particular instance where what happened was the water department used the same contract that we did with the state for the Safe Routes to School and just continued.
Right.
Now, in talking with Tanya, she thought it would be okay. She's like, okay, it's a continuation. You wouldn't necessarily need to, but because of the volume of the dollars, because it was $153,000, we should have went out to bid, which would have cost us a lot more money, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you'd have some new contractor coming
So,
in, yeah.
but it made sense to, at that point in time, continue with the people who are already working on the state road with the state contract that DOT had with them.
And
So,
I'm not sure, and Ed, you'd probably know more, but we probably could have went for an emergency waiver on the bid law here because of just an extension. I don't know if they would have given it to us or not, but.
I don't know the original value of the contract, and usually when you're doing construction contracts, they'll give you a 30% availability to go over that contract. Anything over that, yeah, either bid. We may have been able to get an emergency, yeah, if we went through the AG's office, which we still probably would have had to get 3 quotes, but we could have done it.
Yeah.
but I guess in this instance, you get it done and you probably saved a big chunk of money.
Oh, sure.
And you get your hand slapped for not doing it the right way, whatever. But I guess in previous years, when they've tested it, like we had a contract with Dave Wickles
Yeah.
from 13 until 15 for 5 years. Well, first of all, it never went to town meeting. Secondly, it never went out to bid. And they would pull that as an example every year because we pay them 100 and some odd thousand bucks. And so they wrote it up a couple times because that's the example that their test, that's what they tested. And so, we just know now that.
Keeps coming back at us. Yep.
Yeah,
No,
so I guess that's just something that we just need to, kind of explain to, the department heads a little better and what those rules are.
I think with Ed here, though, he's better versed than anybody out there with Chapter 30B and the construction law, so I think this should take care of it. I'm sure you discuss it with the department heads, Ed?
I try to, and I try to spend some time with the boards and committees also, because they probably have the least amount of professional knowledge when it comes to mass
Right.
procurement laws.
Yeah.
So,
And
and I will say this, that the boards and committees that I've worked with so far have been very open and thankful for having someone around that they can bounce questions off.
It might be worth, again, discussing that at a department head meeting, kind of just making sure everyone is aware of, what rules we want to follow, so.
Yeah, and explain the laws. I mean, I work with them every day, and they're complicated, so.
But just basic, like what the money threshold is and all that kind of stuff.
There's
so.
actual charts out there, as
Oh.
Ed knows, that
Yeah.
you can hand out to the folks.
And a lot of them don't use them a lot of times. One of the biggest confusing pieces, and of course, I hate what they did through MuniMod with procurement, but probably the most confusing piece out there to some of the department heads is yes, they expanded the quotation process. They went from 10 to, I think it was 35 to 10 to 50, but now they also required, you don't have to advertise it in a newspaper, but you have to advertise it in combis. And most of them just can't get that piece through their heads of how to do it. And to me, it's created a lot more work because you do a quote just exactly like you do a bid. But I've been working with a few of the departments, including the police department, on this server process. Now I'm working with the conservation committee on quotes to do surveys. But yeah, and if you spend any time in combis, you can get lost in there for a long time.
Yeah, it's a difficult system.
Yes.
Okay.
So the next one that came up here that has been, I guess, on for a while is ambulance receivables. So I have begun actually finally getting Coastal Billing to give me all the reports. Normally they would just give me a summary report. So it's going to work like any other receivable, like tax receivables. You book the commitment, you book all the credits, any payments that we get directly from them or directly in the bank, and then they have adjustments based on Medicare, Medicaid, all that, to reconcile to where they have it, which I started a little bit last year, and we improved the process and the reconciliation towards the end of last year, but definitely this year so far. And one of the other pieces was having the fire chiefs, someone in his department match what Coastal Billing has for billing versus what his run sheets are, which takes a lot of time and energy. I mean, you could have one person like do that all the time. So, which I probably could have attached that here, but I didn't. So the auditor and the fire chief and one of his guys conversed back and forth on how they could best accomplish this, and they seemed to be the auditors seemed to be positive and like this is going to be resolved. You know, they were happy with the answers that how they were going to proceed going forward with this. So it's definitely a big improvement from a couple years ago. The next one is just a recommendation for this year, so that next year, when we use GASB statements 84 and 87, which I still need to research, but I will definitely confer with them to figure out the best possible way to incorporate it into our financial statements. You know, what changes we need and how do I need to account for that in my balance sheet. So that's something that I will, you know, be in close contact with them, you know, over the next year with. So, other year issues is IT control. It's been on here for quite a while. Heather started a little bit when she was here. She had a, you'd log in and you'd issue a ticket to what kind of issue you may have, and then once it was resolved, she would go in like a service call and say, this issue has been resolved. But it kind of fell by the wayside. And then when Bob was here, he did sit with the Kim Florek, who is the IT director for Hampshire Regional Schools, to kind of get an overview of, she went through and kind of went through with him to try to figure out what we need, where we're going, what we have, what do we need to go forward. They tried to get a committee of people together to be on that IT committee, and you know, no one really joined that IT committee. And so then here we are last year. You know, Ed talked about, you know, potentially getting a contract with Northeast IT, you know, kind of getting them on board, trying to figure out what we need.
Or another vendor.
Or whoever, but
yeah,
I mean, you talked about that, and so that's kind of who we use in the interim. And so we need to just definitely make sure we get that kind of process started this year, for sure.
So is it true still that we don't have any requirements for password length, the history, expiration, and lockout, and?
So we have to change our password to get onto the system. Every
I don't know, 60 or 90 days.
something, every
Yeah.
once in a while.
Does it prompt you to do that?
It'll prompt you to do that, correct, to change it, to log on to your computer all together.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it.
I actually wasn't that comfortable with the, I mean, if I was an auditor, I'm not sure that that response would satisfy me. Like, the town administrator will work in getting our IT needs addressed in the upcoming fiscal year. They made 3 specific bullet points of very good recommendations, I think, including what John just said. And I just wonder whether or not they can be addressed more definitively, you know, by such and such a date, such and such will happen. They didn't seem like they were very difficult fixes. It just seems like has to do with security, it has to do a lot of important things. And I mean, that statement alone, it wouldn't satisfy me if I was reading it. And I just wonder if it can be more detailed and more prescriptive.
Yeah, that's not my forte, that's not my realm, so.
What do you think, Ed?
I mean, it's been on here for quite a while, so we really need to make sure that we address it.
I'm not
I
going to
guess that
make
was
you
my point.
commit, but if you want specifics, I would say you're going to need to support one of my increases in the budget, because I added money to have a contracted vendor for IT services this year, and we would need that to implement this.
I mean, that's totally overdue, and so is the meeting with Kim Florick, who agreed to actually offer services to the town. Art Lawrence has been saying the same thing for a long time, and I think that it's overdue, frankly.
Yeah, I've actually worked with Art on a few of the items and doing the specs for the new server.
So your budget, line item budget for this, does that cover a consultant coming in to review this process and give us ideas and suggestions and help us get through this?
Yes,
So that'd
and
be
be under contract for the year.
So that'd be a one-time cost this year,
Well, it's continuing,
so
so
ongoing?
it goes on every year.
Okay. Yeah, if we have a breach, it's going to create a problem,
Well,
especially
and if
after.
the server dies, I'm screwed because all my stuff is on that server. We
Yeah.
have no financial information except for where the backup is, so.
There's a backup daily?
I think Art comes in and does it. He has to do it weekly. He has to back it up every week.
Boy. So
Yeah,
would that be included in the project? I mean, we should have an automatic
That's
backup.
actually one of the pieces that's included in the server piece, yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense, because if we lose that, and if Art doesn't come in and.
Oh, yeah, he manually does it. I don't know, I mean, we hire Bluehost. I'm not quite sure what they actually do for us because they're out in Utah or wherever, and
Yeah.
so, like I said, that server is probably about 6 years old.
Yeah, it's not hard to automatically back up to the
Yeah.
cloud if you have the right equipment, so that's what we should look at. I mean, we're large enough budget that we need that.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you're on board with that.
Like I said, this is not accounting wise. This is you guys in town
No,
administrator.
but backing up
Right.
your
Right.
Oh,
your
of course,
financials
of
and
course.
everything.
Yes. And just to get all of us on a schedule where if we need to, redo our computers, in terms of Microsoft Office or 360 or whatever we want to do. I mean, I had a new server, a new hard drive and a new computer when I first got here in 2013. And, we had Northeast Ike come in and correct a few things, but it seemed to go back to where it was. Joyce can't send emails to more than one person because it sometimes kicks back to her. SoftWrite is pretty slow on Mondays usually when you're trying to do payroll.
Most people are.
So, there's definitely a bigger project than just
I think
these
without
control
going into
pieces.
any more detail, which I
Yeah.
don't think we should, I think we should, my recommendation is that we take the 3 points that the auditors pointed out and come up with a more detailed plan, and then we'll look at the budget for it. But I think that it's overdue to upgrade.
Yeah, okay. Ed, so you've got the lead on that one, obviously.
Sure.
The next piece would be the investment policy, where last year, when we brought that forward, it was just the OPEB policy. It wasn't the general piece for investment. So we have to just bring that forward to you guys this year so that you can, approve it. But last year, when it was brought forward, it was just the OPEB investment policy, which had already been done before, so it was kind of duplicating that piece. And then the last piece would be a formal risk assessment process. So I have reached out to other communities on the listserv to find out what kind of documentation they put together a risk assessment policy, just to find out, you know, if there's something that we think of that we might be missing, that another community thinks there's fraud potentially in that particular case. You know, what risks are there within the community, well, within the town hall, that, you know, anything could possibly happen fraud-wise, whether it be timesheets, money coming in and out versus checks and cash, you know, that kind of thing. So I've just put that out there, and I haven't heard anything back. I just did that the other day, to find out, like, how do they document that? Like, what's their documentation for that kind of process? So Ed and I will have to sit and try to come up with that formal process, so.
Okay.
You know, and definitely kind of relay that to the department heads.
So get back to us when you have that done. Do you have a time frame to do that, Ed and Vicky, or?
We haven't talked about it yet.
Okay.
But, you know, it's one of those things that is kind of ongoing. You think of one thing and then you're like, oh, what about this scenario? What about this scenario? It's kind of thing.
It'd be nice to get the responses done, and
This is probably the least amount of responses we've ever had.
That's nice.
Well,
Yeah.
So,
that's a good sign.
it's good. You know,
and
if
this
we can get it
has
down a little
been
bit.
number 7, so.
I want to ask you, I want to go
The right
back.
direction?
Pardon?
All right, we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I want to go back over the ambulance receivables. Something was brought up probably a year or two ago. I don't know if it's still doing it this way, but we use this coastal collection. And their process is send out a bill, then they send out, 3 letters or 4 letters saying, if you don't pay, we're going to do this, do that. And at the end of the 4th letter, we don't do anything more, and it just turns into bad debt. And we talked about going after these, maybe lumping these people that haven't paid together and bringing them to a small claims court. And I know at the time, and maybe I'm the bad guy for bringing it up, it was like, well, we don't want to go after people for money that they owe for ambulances. They had an accident, they needed it. But I mean, that's money that's owed to us. It just seems like if there's a large sum of money out there, we should be pursuing it. Like back taxes, in the past, people have said, well, they can't afford the taxes, so we're not pursuing them. But that's money that everybody here misses out on. So can't get the pulse of the rest of the board, but should we look at a collection agency that'll process beyond just sending out three or 4 letters? I mean, a lot of people out there know that I'm getting 3 letters and after that it'll all go away, because that's just standard for
Well,
collection.
Coastal should have another option of actually turning it over to a collection agency,
So we should.
because I know other companies do.
Okay, so if they do, we should investigate that. I mean, it'll be an additional fee, I'm sure, but I would think if you're brought to a small claims court and you get that notice, you're gonna settle up, especially if it's only for a few $100.
Well, I'll have to go back and read my notes and go through my emails, because there was a process that Coastal and the chief went through when that happened, to determine whether or not it was actually worth collecting or writing off. You know, so they did discuss how that process works, so I'll have to just grab those and figure those notes out, because they did have that discussion.
I remember we had it a couple of years ago. If I
Yeah.
remember, it was
This was
quite a bit
last
of,
year, I think, or the
quite
year
a bit
before,
of
yeah.
quite a pot of money that we were letting go. It was more for the feeling bad for the people rather than we don't want to pursue it, because you can take 20 people to small claims court one time, and that's only one time you have to go, and Ed could do that. You know, you don't have to have a lawyer there. Am I being too harsh on these people, or do you think we should go after what's owed?
I guess, what do we carry in terms of receivables?
I would have to look at what's, you know, I can, so right now, at the end of last year, maybe not the end of last year. I guess this would be current up and through probably, yeah, so right now, I mean, it looks like there's a ton of money in there, but there's $136,000. But when we get the money directly into our bank, it takes a few months before it actually comes to us, before we can post it.
Why would it take a few months for our money to come to us?
Well, because of how the billing cycle works. It's not exact in terms of, it might be, by the time the insurance company pays, it's not immediate. You know, insurance companies take forever to pay.
Right, so it's not money in our bank that you're saying we don't see.
No, it's money like, so what happens is insurance companies pay us directly.
Yeah.
So it may take a month before they actually pay us directly from when we sent the bill out, when
Right.
Coastal actually sent the bill out.
Right.
So if I book and say, okay, you guys owe us $100,000, that money's gonna come trickling in as soon as the insurance companies pay it.
Right.
So at the end of last year, I think there was maybe $88,000, but I don't know how much of that was over 30 days, 60 days. Now, I'd have to look at the aging list that they send me, so.
Is that something you can give to Ed so we can see the aging? Because, you know, if it's 90 days or less, then it's not a big deal, of course. But if it's out 6, 8, 12 months.
Well, the fire chief and Coastal went through and wrote a bunch of that off from it was like from 2005, 2006.
Right, I remember that part.
They went through that and wrote it off.
Yeah,
So most of it is pretty current, but I'd have to go through and look at it again, so.
I mean, I'd like to see the aging so we'll know.
It's a nightmare to actually reconcile ambulance bills, is my experience, and they bill at 3 times the rate of the money that they get in, and then so you're getting all kinds of different levels, and then if they use certain supplies. The question I had, though, is when it comes to Coastal, I was surprised that the services rendered weren't being reconciled against the billing of the service. Was that because of not getting the information you needed from Coastal?
That's something that only the fire chief can do, because those are HIPAA violations. So he has a database of the calls of the people versus what was billed. That's not anything that I can see. And so, you know, I think part of it was he wasn't sure, you know, how to process that, and then it takes a lot of time to match up. And they don't get paid unless they bill. So
Right.
if they're not gonna bill out, then they don't get paid. So of course they're gonna bill out. I mean, you'd like to think that there's nothing that falls through the cracks.
They get paid as a percentage of collection or a flat fee?
Right, that was my next question.
I think it's a percentage.
It's a
not a flat
percentage.
fee, because we get a bill every month for $500, $700, whatever. So it's not a flat fee, no.
It's just
It's
a
around $7,000, $8,000 a year in total, but it's a percentage.
Only on what we collect or what we bill for?
I think it's what they bill for.
So we pay.
I'd have
on
to double check. I'm not positive. I'd have to go back and
bad
look.
debt
So the-
percentage.
Okay.
So there's no reason for them to collect 100% if they're
Right, that's my
getting,
question.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I'm not positive off the top of my head, because I wasn't.
You have to
But I-
ledger these things at the time that they happen with the information you need at the time. If you wait until the bill comes in and try to retrospectively, you spend a lot of time trying to go back and figure it out. So I'm hoping that the auditors and the chief came up with the systems that will minimize the look back, because otherwise it's just a nightmare to try to sort out.
Yeah.
so if you
But
could
the
just,
issue really comes back to the fact that, is the chief reconciling his list with the billing list that Coastal sends him? Because he may keep very accurate records about the calls that he makes, but for whatever reason, we don't know that whether or not Coastal is billing for all of them. Is that gap closing? Because I think
Yes,
that
that's
was an
the
issue.
conversations that he had with whoever at the fire department was gonna do that with the auditors, and like, they were comfortable with how the process was gonna go forward.
Okay, because if you don't know what to expect, you don't, you
yeah.
know.
So if you can get that information back to Ed and he can bring it to us, that we just talked about on billing and percentages and outstanding and all that stuff?
Yeah.
And what the chief and the collection company have settled on. It may be just information, once we hear it, we'll
Yes.
say, sounds great.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Anything more on the auditor's letter or responses?
What's your timeline? I mean, how much time do they give you to respond?
Well, we should do this as soon as possible, because we need to send this to Moody's, a final financial statement with the draft letters and with everything, so.
Is there anything in here that would affect our rating?
No, it's not so much the management letter per se, because it's the financials they look at, but it comes as one big package, and they
Okay.
really need it by the end of March.
So the risk assessment and a
Latest.
couple of others you need to work on with Ed.
Yeah, we always shoot for the end of March, but.
So it sounds, Ed, like a priority.
Yeah, and I've actually gotten a draft investment policy that someone else has used that they filled in. They got it from the Treasurers Association, so we can take a look at that and see if we can modify that.
Just remember to change the town's name.
But I guess you don't have to do the answers before you answer the questions and send this to them, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to say, oh, well, we brought this forward on the, it's not really, they just want to know you're working on the issues that they've found, because that's their job, is to find stuff that we can always do
Yeah,
better.
it'd be nice if we can get rid of a couple for next time. It'd be nice if you never had any at some point, right? But probably
don't know if
not-
that's
not
possible.
feasible.
That's almost,
It's
yeah.
almost impossible.
Possible,
Yeah.
yeah.
They dig till they find something.
Well, no, and that's the thing, you're paying them to find things, not find things, but to make sure that you're doing the processes right. I mean, these are pretty
Yeah, pretty reasonable.
reasonable.
they're
And there's
pretty
not
mundane.
anything that's,
Major.
major that in previous years.
Nope, you're right, so.
And those things that we've corrected, we haven't made those, we've kept with those processes going forward, so we don't have those same issues that come up, so.
So the bad news is good, so it's good work.
It's good, bad news.
Thanks. Guess we're bringing Jennifer back up. Note signing, rollover of ambulance note.
Rollover.
Yeah, it's rolling over the ambulance note, and it's a part of water too, actually, that was borrowed at the end of last fiscal year. So,
Do we have a note here, Ed, that we need
I
to
have-
sign?
I have
Jen
it.
does.
There?
Yeah. So I have the note, and we have Lucy here because she has to notarize. So,
I don't know. Probably all.
He's a notary.
these three don't have to be notarized, just signed. So there's three of them there.
So no vote necessary, just sign away?
Well, the note signing, we're rolling over how much money?
So this is $414,985.
So four,
The bid that one was 2.3%.
So
Okay.
all three copies here?
Yes.
so in case you didn't hear, it's $414,985, and the best rate we got was 2.3%. Do we need a vote on this, Ed?
I would,
Yeah.
please.
So can we have a motion to accept the new note at 2.3% for $414,985?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Is that coming down the road to sign? Yep.
Yep.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Jim.
Then who made the motion?
Pardon?
Who made that motion?
Randy did.
Randy, okay.
It was unanimous.
That I got.
Magnanimous.
Yep.
Oh, I wrote the wrong name. Just kidding.
Okay.
I just signed the middle.
Jen, that the information sheet on it?
That's the bid sheet, yeah.
I'll give it back to you in a second.
Yeah, you can keep it if you want, it's amazing.
Thank you. They used to get all the ones in Beckett, too, as the low bidder.
What's that?
They got most of the ones in Beckett, too, as the low bidder, believe it or not. Yeah, they're very aggressive, yeah.
Easthampton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easthampton Savings Bank.
Wow.
There's actually quite a few bids.
Who's the, who doesn't say name?
I don't know if you noticed, but the signature's down here, you can't read.
Again, are you lefty bashing
Play
again?
with this one.
Best thing I can do is keep it consistent, John. You know,
All three of
that's
us
all
are
you can
lefty.
ask for me.
Yeah, yep. Really? One of mine is.
Neither of mine are either.
Keeping it legal?
It's only 10%.
That's it.
Even fewer true lefties.
Who is?
No, my daughter is.
Yeah.
No, my father-in-law was.
Yeah,
I should have been, but my grandmother kept switching the pens to my right hand.
yeah, my husband was supposed to be lefty too, but
Just one
he
page.
kept taking it out of his left hand.
Yeah, it's just that one
Town
page.
clerk on that one.
Yeah.
It's all yours.
Almost done?
Hold on.
You all set?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay. Next, we have a snow and ice declaration. If you look in your packet there, it says item 9B, snow and ice declaration. So we need somebody to make that motion, read that motion.
All right, as provided under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D, the Board of Selectmen declares a snow and ice deficit and approves deficit spending for the removal of snow and ice from Southampton roads and streets through the remainder of the 2018 to 19 winter season.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, so this is to allow Randall to deficit spend for the rest of the season for his snow and ice removal. Any questions on that? It's something we do on a regular basis.
So just for what it's worth, currently there's $39,743 in winter wages. I don't anticipate that he's gonna go over that in the next couple of weeks. I mean, that seems like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And winter road expenses at $18,384 is left. So the guidance from Department of Revenue is you can declare declaration to, because you have an emergency, you want to overspend, but you can't overspend just to
For the sake of it,
put,
yeah.
for the sake of it and put it in your
Right.
salt shed or
Right,
whatever.
Right,
And really, what you should be spending out of there is just the removal of snow and ice.
right.
So I just wanted to make that clear to people that we can't just put in our salt shed just so we'll have it for next year. Like, we can't, they don't really allow you to do that.
It's here if Mother Nature
If
really
you
hits us
need
the
it. I
next
mean,
couple
I
of
think
weeks.
there's enough money in here, but, I mean, you have almost 50-some-odd thousand bucks, and you have a few weeks left, maybe?
Well, according to Randall, for what's in the pipeline, he's just about spent it all, so,
Spent what all?
all of the winter roads funding.
Even the wages?
I wouldn't think the wages, because we're up to date
Yeah.
on payroll. Right?
Yeah, all right, I mean, if that's, I'm just letting you know the guidance that the Department of Revenue suggests, that you don't overspend just to stockpile for next year.
Right.
And you can't move over line items like the whole stormwater expenses that
Not
were,
until May 1st.
okay, but you can use snow money if it's left over for other departmental expenses, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
If you have, it, yes,
As long as it's not in the deficit.
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
then it's a little hard.
Okay, number 10, fiscal year 20 budget review. You have item number 10 in your packets. Ed, do you want to speak to this, since you put it together?
Yeah, this is the current from Vicky's spreadsheet, so what's included in here are the departments that have submitted to this point in time. And the first one is the town accountant.
Can you tell me what page of the packet, anybody have that up already?
Looks like 109.
And basically, the changes for the town accountant are town accountant expenses, an increase of $1,635. Softwrite support expense, an increase of $200. And in the independent audit, a decrease of $1,000 for a total net increase of $835. And this would not include any COLAs to the wages. as per instructions.
Now, these are just the first round numbers at the finance
Looking at
committee.
these individual sheets.
Yeah, the individual sheets, John.
Yeah.
They're this
No,
way.
but I'm saying these are
110.
the first round numbers
Yeah.
that finance committee just got last night.
Yeah, because this sheet, this summary sheet that you gave us, there appears to be some salary increases in this sheet.
There are some departments that didn't actually follow my instructions.
Okay.
Yes, I will agree with that.
So again, at the finance committee last night, they had some preliminary budgets.
But not all of them were in there, so.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and they scheduled some meetings starting next week with some of the larger departments. Over the course of the next few weeks, are going to meet with all the major departments and look at what they want over the current budget numbers and try to reconcile what they can and can't support, so that we'll come up with a number that we'll have to base fiscal '20 requests on. And as of right now, it's all brand new as of last night, so we really don't have any much reviewing tonight on it, unless you have any specific questions just from what you're seeing.
I mean, I have a list of what everyone's increases were, if you
Yep.
want me to.
Yeah.
go through my department.
Yeah,
I think we have it in front of us, don't we? Isn't that what we have?
The same.
We
We
do,
do,
but
but
I'd love
Vicky's
a
got it in a
summary.
summary form, so it might be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
through, you know, as I was compiling all of it, I went through and wrote down like what increases, you know, general increases, what people had asked for, so
We'd like to hear that.
we can do that or not, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, the biggest budget piece that we're still missing, because they're having their public hearing tonight, is the Norris Elementary School.
Are you fine with hearing that? The summary?
Not finding it.
No. Are you fine with Vicky giving us a
Oh,
summary?
absolutely, yeah.
So like with my expenses, there's an increase in the expenses for trainings, you know, seminars, classes, that kind of thing. The assessor's increase was for town maps and consultants. I'm waiting on the Board of Health, because they were supposed to vote on it tonight, but they didn't have a meeting, so I think Jerry's gonna give me preliminary numbers tomorrow. Building, he put increases in his hours from 35 to 38 hours, and increased the alternate coverage. So when he went on vacation, you know, that individual gets paid $40 per inspection. There'd be enough money for him to do that.
Can I just ask a question before you go any further? What were the guidelines that were given to the department heads around the budget not to include any COLAs? Are there any other guidelines? No? Is it just sort of
I
first
didn't send out the memo, so-
draft wish list?
It was that to try to keep it within Proposition 2.5, but that they were also entitled to, but I had put it on, asked them to do it on a separate sheet to include any wishes for the upcoming year, so that we got a total picture of what their needs may be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And the other piece is, yes, I did ask them not to include the COLAs
Okay.
in any of the salaries, so that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee would fill that number in.
So non-union COLAs for everyone who works in this building for 2% would be like $28,000, just for what
For
it's
the
worth.
whole building.
Yeah, for anyone who's not non-union. So, the cemetery put money in to increase for the water pipes that need to be repaired and the landscaping from the trees that they took down. It's all kind of chewed up, so they want to get that repaired. The COMCOM was requesting $26,000 for trail maintenance, because we're buying all this open space and we're not taking care of it. So we need to somehow take care of all that, those trail maintenance. The COA put an increase in the hours for the director. Fire and EMS put an increase in for structural turnout gear. Hampshire Regional, most of it was for salaries for teachers, longevity, county retirement, virtual high school, sped tuition, those types of things. Highways increase was a stormwater management. He put in extra money in wages, potential increase for the union contract.
Yes, hold
yeah,
on.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
We're trying to
Yeah,
catch
yeah,
up.
they're not in this
saying
order, sorry.
The order that we got these in are different than the order
very
you're
different,
giving
which
us.
is-
Right.
Well, because the spreadsheet has them in alphabetical order on the left, and that's
Okay.
kind
well,
of how
okay.
this went, so.
So,
It's too hard to follow, yeah.
What are we on now? Just for, we're not on the same page.
Well, she was
We're
talking
not at
about
all.
highways,
It was just-
stormwater.
Yeah.
Or do you want to just listen to her? I mean, I was trying to follow.
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
all right, I'm just gonna write it down,
Okay.
because I can't match it up on the sheets. Okay.
And police, I forgot to bring Ian's spreadsheet that he sent me.
I think that, was it about $58,000?
You know, overtime increase, wages increase for the union,
Right.
step increases, stuff like that.
No, she will.
There's some training that you need to,
We should.
expenses.
Just ask her for it, yeah.
I think if she's,
That would make more
And there was
sense.
coverage because there's
instead of us trying to
two
follow.
officers in the academy.
Yep,
Right.
yep. So, like I said, he did a whole big
Right.
thing, and I just didn't.
And
print
what
it.
what I liked about yours is that you looked at history, fiscal 16, 17, 18, you put those numbers in there too, so it gave us a good view, so that was good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, like in Concom, their budget was completely cut, so it's good to have the fact that there was a budget at one point. And just so you know, the Council of Aging also is increasing hours of the senior center, not just the hours for the director.
Yeah, they wanted to open more days, correct?
More hours.
More hours.
More hours, yeah.
So what you probably don't have, because I just changed it today, and I didn't send it to Ed yet because I wanted to just verify it. The treasurer collector has an increase, the software support, and basically what we're trying to figure out is their office has more work to do because of all the water guns they have to deal with, all the customers they deal with, they do all the printing, they do all the billing, they take all the collections. And so in having a discussion with the water commissioners, we were going to increase their indirect costs for the indirect work, but they should be benefited to increase their pay for that work that they're doing. So, you know, I went through today and just was trying to figure out how much that potentially would be. The water commissioners are fine with that. They didn't, you know, we increased the percentage for her office, that the time that she does for water, but it should go directly to her office because they're the ones doing all the work.
Okay.
So that, yeah.
You got it, sorry, Jen.
I went to a water commission meeting and I requested more money and indirect costs to my department for wages for my 2 assistants. So
Okay,
they were willing to do that, so the rates that I put in for them, the additional amount will be covered in indirect costs by the water department.
Good.
So, I don't know, I just thought it was
that's
a-
helpful.
Because the history was, back in FY15, we were doing the budget. A lot of people, not a lot, but a few people got furloughed, 5 hours. We didn't furlough the treasurer collector's office because we had money from indirect costs, because at that point, they were taking over all the water billing and collections. But the next year, we didn't give them any more money for doing that extra work. We just, in 15, didn't give them money, we gave them money from the indirect costs so they wouldn't be furloughed, but then they were still doing the same work, and everyone else got their hours back from being furloughed, and they never got any extra for doing that extra work. So that's kind of where that came from. The tree warden was an increase, because as we know from this last windstorm, there's a lot of trees that need to get cut down and trimmed and all that, and $8,000 is not a lot in the budget to take care of all that. And we don't want to happen, you know, what has happened in the past, it falls across the road, that kind of thing. So I think whether Ron is gonna be reelected or not, has marked a bunch of trees, but doesn't have enough money to take them all down. And the town's liable if something happens. So that budget's increased because of that. And the town clerk's budget, well, she's not here, actually went down because we don't have as many elections this year. So she took money away from her elections because we don't have to do all that. And then I didn't have any townwide stuff or ed stuff yet, so I don't know.
I sent
What
that
those
back
are.
to you.
I do not have it.
Okay.
So-
Just
Yeah.
based on who submitted their budget so far, what is the increase for the year projected for 20?
Percentage-wise, right? You want percent?
No, dollar-wise, just
Dollar?
raw dollars, yeah. You know? did you take all the departments and just run a tab of how much more they're requesting this year than last? Just looking for a round number.
Well, we're missing the big number,
Yeah, we are.
Missing
school.
the school.
Yeah,
Vocational is up, but as you know with vocational, in previous history, we have been able to take a few students off of there because they don't, all 55 or 53 students don't necessarily attend. And the school is currently working on new bids for the bus contract.
right.
So my guess is that probably will go up a little bit. And if you remember the big brouhaha we had with charging people for buses, maybe people don't, maybe people do. I want to wait to get that number from the school because at that point in time, we knew they were doing a new contract, but we put what they had in last year and we got stuck. We were $50,000 short at the last minute. And we had to charge people busing who lived, like myself, 2 miles down the road. So I want to wait to get that number to find out how that plays into this whole piece. So the other piece is, I'm just throwing this out there as I'm thinking about doing all this. I don't know where you are with police chief contract, but we should make sure that's settled and done before this budget is done.
Yep.
Because otherwise I cannot pay that person. I can only pay them what's in the budget until we go to town meeting again. So just keep that in the back of your brain.
There's incentive to get it done.
Well, I'm just
you go.
telling you, so it might be the same, it might be less, it might be more, but if it's more, I can't pay that person, but only what's in the budget. So just for what it's
We're on
worth.
track.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, so for instance, if you take public safety in general, which is police, fire, ambulance, communications, and building, the increase is like $95,000 from last year.
Okay.
You know, highway is up 27,000. But part of that, there's no street lighting number in here. I was
You mean
working on that number
30
today.
Highway's up
Should
48,000.
be 48.
35 of it is stormwater.
Yeah.
You have what?
I have 48,000 on the highway, 35 of it is stormwater.
And police was roughly.
Police is
58.
63,
Yeah, so we've got a little over 100,000.
and benefits alone is 100,000.
Right,
I
the
get-
yeah.
So did you put a street lighting number in this? Because I don't have that, and that's not,
Street lighting was level funded,
That out, right?
so the same amount.
because you're gonna be short this year, just.
So, yeah,
So it's gonna be
it's,
over.
Probably
it's
gonna be
tough to
short.
track it, you're right, without the
Didn't look like it
schools,
was
but-
going to be. I'll take another look at it.
Well, I know, but there is some net change
Yeah,
that we need
but it
to
sounds
be
like
aware of, yeah.
$150,000,
So
$200,000
retirement
easy.
is up $105,000.
Yeah,
That's no COLA yet,
That's just benefits.
correct.
Right.
If
That's
it-
just benefits, yeah.
yeah?
Yeah. So we're looking at a couple
So I
$100,000.
guess you and I aren't
plus.
looking at the same spreadsheet,
we're not.
so.
You don't have school yet.
Right, so it's gonna be another year where there's gonna be a lot of money we have to make up somewhere.
And what departments are missing besides Board of Health?
Schools.
School,
Schools.
Board of Health, and
I mean, I don't have Ed's, but if he already put it in, then I mean, I don't know what process
Select
we're
board.
taking. I don't have selectmen's or, yet in the spreadsheet that I've been working with, but,
The selectmen haven't voted on
Board,
theirs as
yes.
of yet.
so.
yes,
That would be one thing that
that's right.
I was going to bring up tonight.
I mean, you gave me workman's comp and general insurance, but I don't have the rest. I have your salaries because I know that we were gonna put everything in without a % increase, but I don't have like what you would do for legal or general, town expenses. But if you have that, then,
I do, I did send it back to you. I'll send it to you again.
Well, as we get
But-
closer, we gotta put a better number, but Hampshire Regional was what, at 128,000?
128, 091, yeah.
So, okay, any other questions for Vicky on the fiscal year 20 budget,
Just,
based on what we have?
just one request, everything that you said that we didn't write down because we were out of order, could you send that to us? The list of the differences, thank you.
And that's gonna be a changing document,
Yeah.
that's based on what people gave me
for the Right.
original
Okay,
right,
It'd be nice to have them.
okay,
okay.
And,
thank you.
and the townwide, just to go over it, internet services was level funded. Web page maintenance was level funded. Certification stipends had a $2,000 increase to it for the employees that have reached their certification levels. Employment advertising was level funded. Photocopy lease and supplies was an increase of $250. Postage, we did not have a figure as of yet. Legal, I was recommending a $5,000 increase to $35,000. PVPC was an increase of $38.05. The Barnes Aquifer Committee is disbanded, so that's a decrease of $2,000. Town Hall custodial wages was level funded. Telephone was level funded. Gas and electric Town Hall was a $4,500 increase, but that $4,500 increase, which comes out to $31,500, if you look back at what we actually spent during fiscal year 18, it was $31,500, or just a little under that. We're going to spend just about the same this year in that, from what I've looked at.
The net metering credits and all that?
I tried to.
We see what we got.
Town hall building expense, I was actually looking at about a $9,000 increase to that. Tech equipment was level funded at $6,500, and tech services was an increase of $3,000, and that's where I had placed a vendor contract for IT.
Okay, and just in relation to this, remember the Finance Committee is meeting with the large departments starting next Monday and going every Monday after that. So if you're interested in sitting in on those, you can hear from the actual department heads,
That'd be interesting.
yeah, the increases they want and why they want them. So feel free to stop up at 5:30. Depending on the night, it's either down here or upstairs in the conference room upstairs.
Will the agenda say what department is
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, you should
You
say.
should.
Yeah.
As we head into this, I don't know who, I assume it would be you. I love seeing this in Excel. Is that possible? Instead of just like, right now, I have as a printed form, I can't do anything with it other than, on my calculator, you know what I mean? Is that cool? Thank you.
Okay, Ed Insurance, oops.
It may have
We
been
have a-
the
we have a
only
copy, right?
Is it in Excel in the Dropbox?
This
What
is
is the
scanned into a PDF.
All I have is
Actually,
scanned
what-
PDF
actually-
documents.
actually
I'm
what
sure
I
that it is.
sent
That's why
you-
I want the original.
I sent you an email, a separate email, which has got it in Excel.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's,
Thanks.
as long as that's just easier for me to see.
Thanks, Vicky. Insurance clause 21 and 22, Ed?
Yes, and in your packets, you should have a summary of what the Hampshire Health Insurance Trust is looking to do for health insurance changes this year. And we are going to have to go through the process, which I'm going to have to do some research on over the next couple of days, so we can take care of it at our next meeting. There's a formal process that the board will have to go through to notify our health insurance committee and implement those changes. It's the one labeled item 11.
I don't have it.
It's on the front end of this, Francine, is that what you're looking for?
I'm looking.
It's on the front end of the package.
Oh, okay, put it over here.
Stapled together, says number 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so the changes aren't that dramatic, if I remember correctly.
They didn't seem to be, although they had me a little bit confused, because they actually, the way they laid it out on that front sheet, it actually looked like
Decreases?
there were decreases,
They
so.
look like that
Yeah.
to me, which means, sends a signal of it, we got to be increasing costs.
Yeah, so I have sent off an email to them trying to clarify that, because I don't know if really the column number
See
2,
that the rates aren't going up, but the benefit is,
right, and I don't know if,
pays are going down, some of them rather dramatically.
yeah, and I don't know if 2 was ever implemented or not.
Huh?
So you're gonna check, Ed, make sure, verify those are accurate numbers?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the premiums haven't gone up for quite a number of years,
35 to 40.
and
everything's
it's
going
because they're
down.
being subsidized by the trust out of,
Man.
I'll say savings for lack of the proper term, correct?
Define
Ed?
it.
No, we can't. I haven't done it either.
Okay.
Maybe because we got our packets early.
Well, then what is this?
I have 12 and 13.
Early packet blues.
Oh, that didn't
Last
go
year.
through.
Here, take that one.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
The 18 didn't go through.
Okay,
And that's the original. Okay, so does
Okay,
everybody,
folks.
you want me to explain that to you on this, on 11?
yeah, you wanna do that?
I
or
just
you
went
wanna
over, yeah, I just went over it with Jen. So on this sheet, column 1 is where we're at right now.
Okay,
is
two-
present state.
I was wondering if,
Column 1 is present state.
if the other one never got implemented.
Column 2 never got implemented, and column 3 is what's getting implemented.
Okay,
And so as you can see, while the rates and the costs aren't going up, the copays, the
right.
copays are in comparison to column 1.
But in comparison to insurance that
on the
most
private
people
sector,
out
yeah.
there have, myself included, these are very low changes.
No, I would say that they're in line with my,
Yeah, see, they're
They're
low
better
for
than
me.
they're not on yours.
They're better than mine.
They're better than yours, yeah. Mine are,
And one of the keys,
I
and
mean, yeah.
we want to talk about this going forward, is with the trust, is the medical deductible is at 0. And that's pretty unheard of. to
Yeah,
have
it is.
0 deductible, you know, and I think Jim explained that with his company, how much you can save by having a medical deductible that's reasonable, so,
I didn't even say 20% on our side, so.
yeah. But what we need,
$2 million policy, that's a lot of money.
yeah, well, yeah, regional schools is a little over $3 million they pay for health insurance. But Jen, you are the person that represents the town on the health insurance trust, is that accurate? Yes. Okay, can you pop up here and tell us how those meetings go, and, because I think we're all kind of in the dark on how that operates. So you represent us, how often are the meetings?
So the meetings are normally quarterly.
Okay, is there agenda published?
There's an agenda published, yep.
And do you discuss these changes? These changes came about,
Yeah, they've been discussing making change for, you know, obviously since at least 7/1/18.
right? So if we wanted to see how to put a medical deductible in there, how would we go about that? If you don't know, that's fine, we have to find
Yeah,
out.
that's something that the trust would have to vote on. It would have to be, I guess, the idea would have to be thrown out there at a meeting and,
Right.
you know, see what they say.
When's the next meeting?
They're quarterly, I want to say that there should be one in April, probably
April?
coming up soon. I feel like it's been a while.
Could you let Ed know when the next meeting is? So Ed, you can let us know?
Yeah, so I actually did have, my contact from the trust, she's going to, for now on, hopefully email Ed
Yeah.
also on the agenda, but if not, if you're not on the list, I'll look to make sure, but if
Okay.
he's not, I'll forward it along to him. So he should be on the email list now to get anything that I get, he should receive also.
Do you know if these meetings, anybody can attend?
Yeah, anybody can attend.
Okay, so I think it'd be great, you folks, I know, I'd like to go to one of these meetings and start the conversation.
Yeah, so,
What are you looking for?
I'm just looking forward to it. We're using this one.
Yeah.
We gotta
yeah,
get,
so they've been discussing
one
for a
more
while
if you want
changes
it.
to the plan because it just wasn't financially working,
It probably
You know,
was put in after and since
the
we
way it
picked
was, and
Hold on,
without
hold on a
increase in
sec.
rates.
we need to get everybody back on track, folks, sorry.
Sorry.
We're having a bunch of conversations.
Thank
So
you.
she was saying that they have quarterly meetings, anybody can go, she gets an agenda, she's gonna make sure Ed gets the agenda, and then he could notify us, and I for one would like to go and find out how changes are made, because the trust involves roughly 6,000 people, I believe. Affects a lot of people, so I'd like to learn the process on how to make some changes here that are beneficial for us as well as the folks that have the insurance. And I know we're interested from the regional point of view, we were just discussing that today.
Yeah,
Bec-
so, oh, sorry.
That's okay, I was gonna say, because if you put a medical deductible, you could change the premium by quite a bit, which would lower the premium to the folks paying for it. And the deductible is there, you know, if you get sick, but, you know, a healthy person doesn't really touch the deductible.
Yeah.
So they could save a lot of money and save up enough money to pay off the deductible if they needed to. That's what I'd like to
It's
explore.
definitely not easy to make a change. I mean, even these changes, there's already been a lot of work done in the background. Like,
Yeah.
every single municipality in the trust had to send out letters to anyone that was in a union, like saying, you know, having them accept that there was going to be changes.
Right,
And that happened last year. So that has to happen first. All the unions have to accept.
right.
And then now, what we're going to go through, what Ed is about, the section 2122, that has to be done too, and that has to be done for every change. So
Okay.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
And a lot of time. But, you know, I'm not saying it's not possible, it's just,
well,
they're doing
again,
these changes right now. I don't know how ready they're going to be to do any more, you know?
well, again,
Yeah.
we have a voice there.
Yeah, yeah,
And the premiums, again, they've stayed level because they've been using their funds that they've been accruing, so that can't happen forever. And at one point, I think if I get this right, Tammy, is there was like $28 million in reserve, then it went down to $9 million because they were spending it off, and now I think it's back up to $21 million or so. So they really took a dip, and
they did, yeah.
that's pretty tough, because if they would have went out of business, there would have been a lot of people,
Yeah.
you know, without insurance. So I think it's worth us at least going and finding out the process.
Yeah, I'd also like to know, so this trust represents, you said 6,000 people?
That
There's
number-
like, I'm not sure exactly how many people, to be honest. I think there's about, 40 municipalities
Yeah.
that are
That
in
was just
it.
a number I heard, not
Um,
necessarily dependents, just the
I would have to look, I mean.
Insured?
insured,
Insured.
yeah.
And
Oh, insured, okay.
who votes on changes?
Well, everybody gets a vote. I think we get a 1% vote, let's say, in Goshen and Chesterfield and all that, and we don't have a whole lot of percentage, but we've got several percentages, as I remember it. And that was from the woman in Goshen who gave me that information. I have it somewhere in my file, but I don't have it with me. So you get a small percentage of the total vote.
Yeah, it's a prorated
Yeah.
vote, and Jen is the voting member to that
Is
committee.
usually
vote
treasurer
primarily
collectors.
done by the municipalities that are looking over the budget, or the vote done by the benefactors of the insurance?
The vote is done by, the treasurer collector, mainly treasurer collectors from each different municipality.
So the hat that they're wearing at the time is the budget, what fits for the budget, right? Or what is in the best interest of the town from a financial standpoint?
Correct.
Because there's a lot of competing benefits from the financial savings as well as the benefit to the employee,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
And not a negative from your point of view is, if you're not aware of all this information and what people are trying to do, you can't vote because you don't know. So I think we need to make sure we're all in sync. And by us going to a meeting or two, I think we could bring ourselves up to snuff.
And I can see how it would be valuable to have, some comparison. If you look at this chart here, you can see that some of the other people that are even being compared, they're paying, quite a bit more.
Yeah.
They have a medical deductible, and, I mean, all of us can vouch for the fact that, we have insurance, and this is a pretty good deal here.
It is a really good plan.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I
the
have the
question is, it's good for the employee.
GIC, so you can see what my plan is, yeah.
Well, it's good for the
What are
employee, but we
these-
have to make sure it's good for the municipality.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And what are these these are cost per month? Like
The
premium PPO?
1993, that
Yeah.
is a cost per month, and depending on
Did
the
they put
split,
GIC in there for a comparison?
Yeah, they have GIC.
Oh, okay.
and that's what I have.
And
Oh,
that's
okay.
So the premium for the PPO family is 1993.26 per month.
And
So if
that's-
you got a 70-30 split, you split that number.
70/30 is
Oh,
pretty good,
it's
too.
75-25 up there.
Or whatever split you have, that's the number you,
70/30 here. is that
70/30.
what-
It's 75-25.
at the regional it is, yes.
At the regional.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But here it's 70-30.
There is.
Oh, 75.
So
I believe
basically,
it's theirs
uh,
also.
an employee would pay $600 a month, and we would pay $1,400. So,
Yeah.
a lot of money.
It would be really interesting to look at a few scenarios where the deductible, you know, from 250 to 500, I mean, just look at it and see what the impact it would be on both sides.
I think we need
Well,
to-
we'll see what it is, and we can do the math.
Sorry. But I also think we need to bring it to the trust so they can get on board, because we're not gonna, you know, not gonna wag the dog from here. Any other questions on this before we go to the insurance clause 21 and 22? Or if you're involved with that, you may want to stay there. Are you involved
I
with?
am involved in it somewhat, but I think that Ed is taking the driver's seat, so.
I am on this
Which is-
part of it,
Yeah,
yes.
so
Okay.
that's good.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ed.
You're in the driver's seat, Ed.
Thank you.
Did you want to talk about 21 and 22?
Basically, I'm going to do some research on that over the next couple days and get everything aligned so that we can do what's necessary at our next meeting.
Okay. Letters recommending waiving right of first refusal for 2 and 4 Woodmore Glen, Conservation Planning Board, Board of Assessors. As I read this, have all approved that?
Yes, they've all sent us letters requesting that we waive our right of first refusal.
Are those the 2 lots that are cut out with all the land behind it? Think of the right place? Or,
They're on Woodmar, the first two on the right.
First two on, yeah.
okay. Was this the issue where we wanted them to join the HOA, or am I thinking it
Yeah,
different?
it is. the one- that
Yes,
is-
but we don't have a mechanism to enforce that at this point. This is just a release of 61A.
So that means they can build on it, and what happens if they build and they don't join the HOA? If I remember correct, that was the question.
I think.
They'll be accessing the stormwater that they're
Yeah.
not paying for upkeep on.
Right.
Right.
Correct?
I believe, I heard that the first lot on the right, the driveway will be on Pleasant Street, so that's irrelevant. So, just due to the size of the way the lot's laid out, I was told by I got a call from a potential homeowner that was looking at it, and he wants to have his street on Pleasant Street. And I said, well, that, as far as I'm concerned, that's fine, because now your runoff and everything's gonna be that direction. The second lot, so is the only lot in question, I was told by, I think it's Amanda, is she the one that's
Amanda
handling it?
Kemp?
That they were really pushing to have the purchaser, join the homeowners association.
So what is our responsibility as a town if they don't join the HOA and they have issues with water runoff? Is there anything that can come back to us? That'd be my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I cannot answer that. I think the opportunity was missed. The planning board, it was an oversight, that when they went for the A&R to cut those lots out, it should have been caught at that time, but it was missed, so. I
Caught at that
flagged it.
time to what? To encumber the
Well,
property with that?
Those lots, that property was all one parcel to Guns. They cut it out and added the 2 lots to Woodmar, or one in the corner of Pleasant and Woodmar, and one on Woodmar. When the A&Rs went to the planning board, they should have flagged that. It's not a situation that happens every day. It's unique that happens. Usually, when they approve a subdivision, if it's 9 lots, it's 9 lots, and this was 6 lots with now added 2. Well, actually 1, because 1 will be on Pleasant Street, so.
So again, going back to,
Yeah,
do we have any liability at this point if we waive our right of first refusal?
Yeah, I don't see if we either gonna exercise our right and purchase it, or
Yeah.
I don't see the mechanism here to enforce that, other than I was just bringing it to the attention of the people that are involved, that they should definitely strongly consider and persuade the new owner to be a member of the homeowners.
So because the planning board missed it, we're basically We have to,
We own it.
It's not, yeah, it was a mistake. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it was missed, but,
and Woodmore is not a private road,
it's a
so,
public way.
so if there any issue with the runoff repairing the road and everything, we're gonna eat it, basically.
Hopefully Amanda will take care of that and have that new homeowner join.
And we
But,
can't do it pending that approval, right? We can't say that as part of our motion?
Well, again, it's like Jim says, it's the first right of refusal, so,
Right.
you know, all we're saying is, do we want to buy it or don't we?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think the mechanism is here to, I would like to, but I don't.
Can we retroactively go back and do that?
Planning.
Yeah, I don't know if the
Board?
planning can call her back. I'm not sure.
I mean,
I mean, nothing's been built on. I just,
No.
I feel like we should try to do that.
The only other thing we could do is maybe we can generate a letter to our building department, and when the permit is pulled for the house, make sure they join at that point. I know, is that a possibility? I'm not sure if that's legal or not.
I don't think the
Probably
building
not.
commissioner can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm just throwing ideas out there.
I mean, there's two thoughts, and one of them, we're gonna have to waive the right of first refusal, because obviously we don't want to buy it. But secondly, we could have a board recommendation to the planning board that they go back and look at trying to correct the error before any building is allowed on there.
Yeah,
Sound,
yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I could go back. We don't have a meeting, the meeting tomorrow night's canceled,
Right, I saw that.
so,
And how
So-
quickly
I think that's
There's no
worthwhile.
building permits or anything pulled yet, right?
I haven't seen any.
So let's deal with the waiving the first right of first refusal first. So, can we have a motion to waive the right of first refusal for 2 and 4 Woodmore Lane?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion on just the right of first refusal? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain,
Okay,
on a butter.
4-0 and 1. So would somebody like to make a motion that the board recommends that the planning board goes back and review the issue of the error and try to correct it legally so that the owners of 2 and 4 Woodmore Lane have to join the HOA, which takes care of the runoff issue?
And I would just I'm in total agreement with that, and the only thing I would, so moved with the following caveat, that if one of those lots' driveway is unpleasant, then,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, that's the one kind of asterisk. If the corner lot is driveway is unpleasant, then I think that inherently removes them from the issue as well, so,
Okay.
so
that's your
moved on
motion
that.
with that.
Yep, so moved with that
Okay.
amendment.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on that? I don't know how the planning board is gonna do it, or
Yep.
if they can do it, but I think it's worth following up on.
At least we won't, it'll put it on our agenda, and we
Yeah.
can try to address it
So
that
you'll
way.
take care of that, Jim?
If you
Yeah.
could send maybe Ed can just send an email out to Paul. I might,
Okay.
I don't want to forget about it, so I think it's important. And I have to be careful because I am in a butter, so
Right.
I flagged the issue, I saw the issue, and I just want to bring it to everybody's
I'll
attention.
make sure when it hits the agenda, I'm there also.
And what was the vote on that?
401.
4-0, same as the other, okay.
Okay, notice of intent to convert land classified as 61A, number 2 and, well, we just did that, right?
Well, the first one was the letters from the other boards. Now, this is what you're going to do about it. So, I think you just voted that, so.
We just voted
We
to.
did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Selectmen to invite.
Jim?
Oops.
Oh,
To
yeah.
invite warrant articles for the May 7th annual town meeting and set date for close of accepting articles. So normally we set it, 30 days before it? Or is it 2 weeks? I forget. 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would probably recommend, let's say, I didn't put it in there, to close them, oh, God, no, come on. On let's see.
April 23rd. April 23rd.
I would say April 5th.
April
Well,
5th.
a month ahead?
Yeah.
So then, Ed, my question is with regard to capital, where are those requests at? Because we need to review that as a committee, especially for articles, right?
Right.
We're coming in on it
And I
now.
think Charlie was going to call a meeting, and
Does he have all of the information from each of the departments?
I will double check and make sure.
I mean, this can't be rushed. I mean, we need to,
I'd suggest we do it like April 15th, because that still gives us 3.5 weeks.
Well, don't forget, some of these articles are going to have to be reviewed by
Lawyers.
legal, too.
Yeah,
And
I
3.5
don't-
weeks isn't enough, you don't think?
well, it depends if they have changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to get it out to people.
But April 5th is literally, what,
Okay,
a
then,
way or so?
2 weeks.
Yeah,
you'd want to do it before your meeting on the 16th, so,
yeah, that's why I said the 15th. I mean,
or do the 12th?
end of the week?
Yeah, end of the week before.
1, 2,
And
3,
if there's changes, then it's really quick, I guess.
Hmm.
yeah. And
I'm
at least-
fine with the 5th. My.
Yeah, go to the
Based on the
12th.
committee that I'm responsible for, I mean, capital's gonna be a
Yeah,
big
go
part
to
of
the
this.
12th.
Okay.
So the 12th will give an extra week and still give you
Mhm.
almost 4 weeks. Okay, so let's do the 12th,
12.
April 12th.
Ed, do I need to send any type of capital reminder to you?
What's that?
Do I need to remind you about capital?
No, I'll double check it in the morning.
Now, Ed, April 12th is a Friday, so no issue with that?
Make it the 11th then.
Okay,
All right.
gone. Any other necessary business that can't await the April 2nd regular select board meeting? Anybody have anything that's not on the agenda? If you folks don't mind, I'm going to take the licenses and permits next, only because we have our favorite beer guy sitting here waiting for a while. Do you mind if I do that? No, okay. Come on up. The One Day Beer and Wine, Beer Guy LLC, Harley Davidson of Southampton Benefit Fundraiser, Chili Cook-Off Contest. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
You've been there the
Thanks
last
for
couple of
waiting.
years, huh?
Yeah.
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 If people haven't gone to the chili cook-off, it's very good. Very
I saw
good.
you last year.
Yeah, it was good. I won't tell you how it hit me for days after, but it was very good. So you just want the one day normally as you drive your
Yeah.
truck in there? Okay.
We'll probably get there 10 o'clock. I think people start eating at 11, and
Yeah.
by usually 1, 2 o'clock, it's wrapped up and we're gone.
Yep,
And I'm just hoping it's not gonna rain. I looked at the weather,
No.
and it's gonna be nice.
good.
Last year was a washout.
And they have
Cold
a,
last year, it was
Yep.
30 degrees outside.
Yeah,
Dr. Bigda was on the roof for
I
4.5,
remember that,
almost
yeah.
5 hours.
yeah.
wow.
It was cold.
So Ed, all the paperwork and everything done?
Yes, it is. It's all in order.
Checks in the mail?
It's actually already been deposited.
Checks in the bank.
So do you need a motion on this?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
That was quick.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Thanks.
Nice seeing you.
I will let you guys know that Harley
Jim.
Davidson is now hooked up with Bob Kane from Thunder Rockets. He does all his events for the Women's Breast Cancer Society.
Yep.
They scheduled 2 breast cancer fundraisers this year
Just the
at
top or the other?
Harley Davidson that
Just
we're
the
gonna
top.
do.
Great.
So I'm hoping it turns out to be pretty good. They picked
Right in the middle.
Thursday nights to do it,
Yeah.
so.
You gonna be there?
We'll be there. I'll let Ed know. I'll get my paperwork in next
Okay.
month.
Good.
In
Awesome.
Okay,
plenty of time.
so we're gonna sign
They used to
this.
promote their own events, but now they've hired somebody else to do them
Yeah.
because I don't think they have the budget to do it or the time.
That's great.
Squeeze your names in there.
Okay.
Good.
Beer guy's done.
Really?
Yeah. Somewhere in there. And we'll turn it off.
Right,
You took
sat
up,
here all
you
this
took up so
time.
much space.
We really should have.
So, your season should be starting
Oh, well,
about now,
you
right?
Go right ahead.
Yes, I've already done a
Have a
couple
volunteer.
events.
Just a job.
I hooked up with Yankee Candle also
Okay.
to do a couple
Order pizza.
fundraisers with them.
Yeah,
We didn't need to order
We're doing the Children's Miracle Network for the town of Easthampton, and, because Easthampton's gonna do fireworks this year.
good, good.
Oh, they
So-
haven't done that, yeah.
We're looking for a big event with that. A lot of local businesses have partnered with Mike Perry. I gave Ed one of the calendar brochures, I'll give you one too.
Sure.
Hopefully you guys can,
Great.
Hold it up, get it on the camera. Free advertisement.
Advertising, yeah, really.
Public information, yes.
Okay, that's great, thanks. That's a cool thing.
And we hope to raise enough money for the Children's Miracle Network, and we're giving a lot of our proceeds
For them.
back to the town. I'm gonna have one of those puppet printing, is gonna print one of those big checks, we're gonna do like one of those big proposal things like
Oh,
that.
that's
So
cool.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
You wanna get your picture in the paper, right?
Yes, I do. Mass Live is gonna do a press release for us, the whole
Good.
thing, so.
Good, that's cool.
Thank
That's
you.
good. I think Ed's getting you the,
He's gonna make a copy.
Yes,
so hang in for a minute.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Okay, PCFs. These were all done by the Finance Committee last night. Does anybody have the originals there to read off? Ed's probably got it.
Oh, it's
I
gone.
have some of them here.
Yeah, see if we can find them online here.
First is the firefighter certified Eric.
Loico?
Eric Loico.
Now, some of these aren't signed by PQB either, were they?
They were supposed to be signed by everyone, because Finance signed off last night.
Okay, unless this, we got a,
Well, then you may
we got an
have-
earlier version.
Let's see what Ed has, maybe he
Yeah.
has the most.
Yeah. You have the PCFs, Ed?
I have the originals, yes.
Okay.
Can we take those so we can read
Are
them?
they all signed
See all
up?
the
They've all been-
signatures?
Yeah,
Yeah, hang on a second. There we go.
All right, who wants the honor?
So I guess it's me, huh? Okay, Eric Loico. Part-time. He's going from 1150 to 1250 because of.
Certification.
Minimum wage
It's an
increase.
increase with minimum wage, although minimum wage doesn't apply to us. It was based on that, so he's going up the extra $1. Signed off, finance, PQB, and police chief, or fire chief.
So this is not based on certification?
Nope,
Oh, okay.
it's bringing them over with the increase with minimum wage. They were started at the minimum wage when they started, and they've earned, for instance, this person went up to 1150, so minimum wage went up to 12, so the chief is just bringing him up the same amount over minimum wage.
Okay.
And it won't add to the budget. None of these are going to add to the budget for the fire. Anna Nadler,
Is this consistent with all the departments?
that I'm not sure.
Well, I think we need to think about that.
Well, it went through the PQB. They didn't have an issue with that.
They didn't. I mean, I'm reading their minutes right now, but I would have, and I was not at this meeting, so I didn't. But I would have said something to the tune of, I mean, we basically didn't give raises this year, right? So
Correct.
why are we doing this?
This is a market rate adjustment. If you don't do it, you're not going to have these people working here.
I understand that.
So Anna Nadler, It's going from 1172 to 1272. Same reason. I'll try to group those so we can decide if we want to go ahead with that.
Well, those are the only two fire, right?
Yeah, those are the only two fire. So, being increased by basically that $1 an hour each because of the minimum wage that went up in January to compensate them for the difference that they earned. So does anybody have an issue with this, or somebody want to make a motion that we accept it?
My concern is setting a precedent.
Do we have anybody, Ed, that is below minimum wage right now?
In other departments.
No.
Because I think they've been adjusted
Okay.
also going down the road.
All right, if this is not,
Yeah, although we don't have to use minimum wage, I
Period.
think everybody's felt that minimum wage is minimum, so we want to at least keep them in par with.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
okay. If the assurance is that there's no one below that in any other department, and if this is what we're gonna say is the minimum wage that we've agreed to, then I'll go with it.
That,
Oh.
as I remember, has been our history. Is that
Yeah.
correct, Ed?
There are none that I am aware of that are at or below minimum wage.
No.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry, yeah.
It is normally the history to bring them up to minimum wage. I haven't seen it like brought up, like to, brought up like from 11.50 to 12.50 to make up for that $1 from 11 to 12. I haven't seen that yet, but normally they are brought up from, you know what I'm saying? Normally they're brought up from minimum wage. If it was 11 and it turned to 12, they're brought up to 12.
Because they were
So-
getting minimum.
Minimum wage.
So I guess because minimum wage turned from $1 more, he's saying they're 11.50, they should get 12.50. Does that mean that everyone should get that $1 because minimum wage changed that it's kind
That's
of,
where they were. If they were at 11 and
it's
they
kind
went to
of,
12.
I don't know,
they
to
get-
me, it's kind of like, so someone making $12 isn't gonna go up the $1 to 13, do you know what I'm saying?
Well, they
It just seems
will
like
come January next year.
if minimum wage, I don't know,
Is 12.
Right, so
it's
the-
12,
It's 12 right now,
It's
yeah.
the law.
but I don't know, I just,
But do you know of anybody
Making
That is
less than
below-
$12.50.
$12 an hour?
no, we don't have anyone that is below $12 an hour off the top of my head, except for in fire.
Yeah.
So yeah, but normally he'll bring them up to minimum wage.
I'll make a motion to
I don't
approve Eric Loico and Anna Nadler,
Okay, is
their
there
PCF.
a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll sign those.
A
Okay.
pen, I mean, they're already signed off, right? The Finance Committee?
They're all
Yeah.
signed up
Yep.
by everybody. Okay, PCF, full-time police officer, Joshua Lamb, full-time, benefited, due to the resignation of Jeremy LaRochelle, it looks like. And he replaces John Arici.
Did you skip over Alexandria? Or did
I'm
you-
just
Yeah, that
wondering
one.
what I have in my hand.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
gonna do
Okay.
them both.
No problem. Hourly rate's $21.94, 37 and a half hours a week. Signed off by everyone. Next, full-time police officer, Alexandria Capin Perizzo. Replaces Jeremy LaRochelle. And resignation of John Arishi. Boy, this seems,
We got a letter to this effect.
yeah.
Yes, I read
Yes.
that.
Yeah, from the chief. Signed off by everyone. This is a PCF, truck driver, equipment operator, Andrew Corvo. It's an emergency.
Well, do you want to do
Wanna-
do you want to approve the
these?
police and then move on to the highway, or you want to just
I
continue?
was gonna continue, but if you want to separate them, I'm fine with
Well,
that.
we did that with the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I move to approve the police
two
PCF.
full-time police officers.
Well, there's your second and first right there.
so
Second.
yeah, Francine and Matt, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded?
Matt.
Matt.
Okay, truck driver, equipment operator, Andrew Corvo, replaces David Sist, it looks like.
Mhm.
$15.73 an hour, signed off by everyone. That was the emergency. Now, Andrew Corvo, full-time, benefited, signed off by everyone. So if we're going by department, I need a
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is for PCF for Robin Richard.
New hire.
Yeah, she's new hire. She is replacing Joanne Bigelow, who is a temp. It's full-time, emergency, no benefits.
This is the one that wasn't signed off by, at least my copy, PQB.
Right, this is signed off by all.
Okay.
And 1698. Okay, and now we have Robin Richards, full-time benefited. Same rate. Signed off by everyone, so for the assistant treasurer collector, we have a motion to accept both.
I move to accept.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Great, thanks.
Who made the motion and who seconded?
I seconded.
Thanks. Yeah. Who made the motion?
I did,
Thank you.
Okay, Francine, you have one warrant you signed?
yes. Okay, warrant W-19-37 for $319,106.65.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, annual town caucus warrant. For 25 in your packet.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know if it's possible, Ed, but it's number 25, for instance, but it doesn't note the page number on our Dropbox. Is there a way?
Notes it on the scan, though, on the email that he sent.
But on the Dropbox, it's, because it's so difficult to see. Is there a way to correlate those two numbers?
What two numbers?
Well, you've got item number 25, annual town caucus, but the Dropbox has all different page numbers. And trying to scroll through 150,
So this doesn't have a page number.
60 pages is kind of tough to find it.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How would we be able to number them?
Well, the pages are automatically numbered in Dropbox.
Yes. But how would we know that when we scan them and then because it goes in the Dropbox last?
Well,
Are you talking about the top corner or the page?
No, he's talking about the page.
I'm talking about the page number right here.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so once you put them in Dropbox, then you go to the agenda and put the numbers on the agenda.
You mean instead of the item numbers, the page numbers?
Yeah, that'd be more helpful.
Because we can't see the item numbers in Dropbox.
Mm.
And, I've got to go through.
You
100.
can't?
Seen one like it with
I like it.
Well, it's 187 pages,
left,
so.
left.
Are you okay with the numbers on the agenda the way they are?
Pardon?
Well,
Or would it be easier to
we
Dropbox?
use packets, they
I
print
use the
it.
packets.
Oh, you use the
I read
printer.
it online, but then
Yes.
I use the print
So I
copy.
guess we have to go to print.
I'm
I'm
not going
fine.
to print.
Well, I'm fine with the way it is. I
Okay.
figure it out.
I just keep scrolling.
But honestly, it's not in
Rolling
the, it's not,
along.
also, this is not in the Dropbox. This is not in the file.
All right.
No, I saw it in the scanned
We
document.
need a motion.
Okay,
for
so
this.
let's go on to get out of that one.
Yeah,
So town caucus warrant, number 25.
somewhere, but not in the packet.
I can't find it. You put my finger on it.
You just-
Okay, Ed, why don't you go on that one?
What's that?
What do you want us to do with that?
All I want you to do is sign the annual warrant for the annual town
We have
caucus.
to vote to approve.
Do we need to move,
All you need to
motion?
do is sign it. No, don't need a
Sign it, she
motion.
said- He said,
Okay, sign it to announce it? Okay,
all right.
so we don't need a motion,
No.
okay? Pending items, anybody have any discussion on those, or can we just go over them?
You already went through almost.
Yeah.
There you go.
Minutes to approve, November 9th, 2017, December 20th, 2018, February 19th, 2019, February 28th, 2019, March 5th, 2019. Did everybody get a chance to look at those?
Yep.
And if so, is there any comments, corrections, edits?
just want to say
No.
thank you for going back and doing all these, and your assistant, because this goes back quite a ways.
Yes. And actually, what you have in the packet to sign is November 9th, 2017, February 19th, 2019, February 28th, 2019, and March 5th, 2019.
So December's out. you said.
December's out, and it's not quite finished yet.
January.
Cross that
is
out, okay. So have a motion to accept as written if nobody has any
Yep, so
Question?
moved.
Second.
discussion?
Who
All in
made the
favor?
motion?
I did.
Reading.
Aye.
Okay,
Second.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
So
Okay.
all but December, yeah.
So we're just short 2, Ed, and that'll bring us up to current?
There's one I'm still chasing from the summer of 2017 that it's listed as a meeting, but I have not found anything on it, either in a recording, video recording, or minutes, so I'm not sure if the meeting was canceled or what have you. So I may email some of you and that were here and see if you can check your notes and see if that meeting actually ever did occur.
Okay, but there's no recording, so that might tell us.
Yeah.
Okay, May meetings to be determined. I'm okay with not scheduling any right now, unless you folks want to go out that far. Okay. Open time for the public. No one? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Party's almost over.
Oh, not really.
No.
Okay, so unless we miss something, we're going to end up going into executive session. And I have a question on not coming back, Ed. Will there be a possibility we might come back, though? You're not seeing anything? Okay,
I'm not seeing anything,
okay.
but if you do, go ahead.
Well, we'll have to keep Ryan here if we do,
Yeah.
though. That's the issue. Does anybody see anything we need to come back in?
Jim or Francine?
No.
Well, I do, but I can't ask the question because it's an executive session, so I want to. So let's go with, we won't reconvene. So we're going to go into executive session. We have still pending 4 executive sessions, and I'm going to read them off. Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Number 3, discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the
Yeah,
bargaining or
today's
litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. This is the Police Officers, New England Benevolent Police Association. Executive session 2, it's under the same Mass General Law. It's for dispatchers, New England Benevolent Police Association. Executive session 3 is same Mass General Law for the College Highway former Wayne property. And executive session 4, same Mass General Law. This is under Section 21A, Number 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid requirements. That's approval of executive session minutes, October 25th, 2018. So can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Roden, aye?
Roland, aye.
Martin, aye.
Tishman, aye.
Labrie, aye.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, then go back in executive session.